Hello everyone, this video is about chapter 35, lesson 4, immune system disorders, pages 1025 to 1027 of your textbook. For the objective, we are going to describe how HIV is transmitted and how it affects the immune system. So what causes AIDS and how is it spread? So in 1983, researchers identified the cause of AIDS, which is a virus they called a human immunodeficiency virus or HIV. The only no-risk behavior with respect to HIV transmission is abstinence from sexual activity and intravenous drug use. So during the late 1970s, physicians began reporting serious infections produced by microorganisms that didn't normally cause disease. So previously healthy people began to suffer from pneumocystis or pneumonia rather, and sarcoma, which is a rare form of skin cancer, and fungal infections of the mouth and throat. Since these diseases are normally prevented by a healthy immune system response, doctors concluded that these patients must have a weakened immune system. So diseases that attack a person with a weakened immune system are called opportunistic diseases. Doctors ultimately recognized that these illnesses were symptoms of a new disorder they called acquired immunodeficiency syndrome or AIDS. In 1983, researchers identified the cause of AIDS, which is, of course, the HIV or human immunodeficiency virus. HIV is deadly for two reasons. First, HIV can hide from the defenses of the immune system. Second, HIV attacks key cells within the immune system, so that means they kill the immune system cells, leaving the body with inadequate protection against other pathogens. So that's why some HIV patients may not die from HIV itself, but from other diseases, since these pathogens, other pathogens that have entered their body may cause other diseases. So how does the virus attack the host cell? So HIV is a retrovirus that carries its genetic information in RNA rather than DNA. So when HIV attacks a cell, it binds to the receptor molecules on the cell membrane and it inserts its contents into the cell. Then the HIV travels through the blood where it binds to the helper T cells, the command centers of the specific immune response. Once the cell is inside, or once inside the cell, rather, the virus directs the cell to produce many new viruses. So these new viruses are quickly released back into the blood where they can infect new cells. So that is the mechanism of the HIV, of how they can invade the immune system of the body or the hosts. So over time, HIV destroys more and more T cells, crippling the ability of the immune system to fight HIV and other pathogens that may enter the body. The progression of HIV infection can be monitored by counting the helper T cells. The fewer helper T cells, the more advanced the disease is, and the more susceptible the body becomes to other diseases. So when an HIV infection person's T cell count reaches about 1/6 the normal level, he or she is diagnosed with AIDS. So how does a person get at HIV, or how is HIV transmitted? Although HIV is deadly, it is not easily transmitted. It is not transmitted through coughing, sneezing, sharing clothes, and other forms of casual contact, unlike the COVID-19 that we have nowadays. HIV can only be transmitted through contact with infected blood, semen, vaginal secretions, or breast milk for pregnant or for mothers rather. The four main ways HIV is transmitted is through sexual intercourse with an infected person, sharing needles with an infected person, contact with infected blood or blood products, or from an infected mother to her child during pregnancy, birth, or breastfeeding. So how do we prevent HIV infection? So you can choose behaviors that reduce your risk of becoming infected with HIV. Within a committed relationship, such as marriage, sexual fidelity between two uninfected partners presents the least risk of becoming infected with HIV. So people who share contaminated needles to inject themselves with drugs are at increased risk of contracting HIV. People who have sex with drug abusers are also at an increased risk. So before HIV or before 1985, HIV was transmitted to some patients through transfusions of infected blood or blood products, but such cases have been virtually eliminated by screening the blood supply for HIV antibodies and by discouraging potentially infected individuals from donating blood. So the graph here shows the increase in cases from 13 years old to 24 years old living with AIDS in the United States. So the number of individuals are shown here on the y-axis, and on the x-axis are the year which the progression of the disease have occurred. So HIV have transmitted to some patients through transfusions of infected blood or blood products, as I have mentioned a while back. So can AIDS be cured? So at present, there is no cure for AIDS. New drugs, however, make it possible to survive HIV infection for years. Unfortunately, HIV mutates and evolves rapidly. So the virus has evolved into many strains that are resistant to most drugs used against them. So it's quite hard to develop medicines or uh, vaccines because of the rapid evolution of HIV. So no one has developed a vaccine that offers protection for any length of time. So at present, the only way to control the virus is to use a combination of expensive drugs that fight the virus in several ways. Current drugs interfere with the enzymes HIV uses to insert its RNA into a host cell, to convert RNA to DNA, and to integrate its DNA into the host's DNA. The knowledge that HIV can be treated has given some people the idea that HIV infection is not serious. However, that idea is dead wrong because there is no cure for HIV. That's why HIV still has a greater number of infected people for how many years. So let's summarize the lesson on HIV. In the 1970s, clusters of cases of opportunistic diseases, these diseases that attack people with weakened immune systems, led to the discovery of a new disease called acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, or AIDS. Research revealed that AIDS is an infectious disease caused by human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV. It attaches to receptors on helper T cells. Once they are inside the cell, HIV copies itself and the new viruses infect more helper T cells. The HIV infection gradually leads to the death of more and more T cells. When a person's T cell count drops to about 1/6 the normal level, the person is now diagnosed with AIDS. HIV can also be transmitted through contact with infected blood, semen, vaginal secretions, or breast milk. So for the lesson check questions, let's have number 1 question. What is a virus that causes AIDS? So the virus that causes AIDS is called HIV. Next question, describe how HIV is spread. The answer is HIV can be spread through sexual intercourse with an infected person, sharing needles with an infected person, contact with infected blood or blood products, and from an infected mother to her child during pregnancy, birth, or breastfeeding. So that's it for the HIV or immune system disorders. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.